This Sunday at Berean Baptist Church, the worship and the sermon are going to be focused on John chapter 20. Not the entire chapter, but specifically the part of John chapter 20 that tells the story of Thomas, who is commonly understood or known as Doubting Thomas. As usual, what I'm having trouble with when preaching from the Gospel of John is deciding on exactly what to preach on, because even in a very few verses there's so much packed in that it's hard for me to focus on any one thing, especially because all of the themes that are interwoven. It's hard to just pick one. It seems like you're kind of tearing apart the whole narrative just to pick one theme. But so some of what I'll be trying to do, hopefully I'll do it is we're going to talk about belief. In verse 29, Jesus talks about blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. So we're going to talk a little bit about what belief means in the Gospel of John. And that's important because belief in the Gospel of John is different than, at least I think it's different than what we commonly mean when we talk about believing in our culture today, especially when it comes to people talking about believing in God and what that really means. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to believe in God, to believe in Christ. That's the first thing I'm hoping that we're going to get to. Another interesting thing that happens in this part of the story is that Jesus commissions the disciples. I'm sending you. And so I think that's important because, kind of the big question for a lot of churches now is how do we get people to come to church? And here's Jesus sending the disciples. So what does it mean to be sent? What does it mean for an individual Christian to be sent? Where are we sent? What does it look like? What do we do when we are sent? But it also is about the church as a community, as a people. And what does it mean that we are sent people? Where are we sent? What do we do when we are sent? So I'm going to try to wrap some of that in there too, because I think that's woven into this story. Another interesting thing that comes up in this part of the story is sin. And this is one of those parts where Jesus says, if you forgive someone's sins, they're forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven. And that's always seemed like an odd verse to me. And so there's a writer by the name of Bert Newton who did a really excellent little book on the Gospel of John called Subversive Wisdom. And he talks about I have to look at my notes. He talks about the sin as being social and economic exclusion. So I guess we're going to talk about sin a little bit and what we've been taught sin means and what sin could mean in the Gospel of John and how that might impact our faith. And so which all kind of ends up with me thinking that really the story of Thomas isn't about his doubt. It's about his resistance. Because if you think about what I've just said a little bit, what we mean by belief will be challenged. What we think about church for, which is to be sent, to be empowered to go, well, that kind of challenges what many people think about when they think of church. And even the idea of sin, in that we are sent out to deal with sin and given power over sin, but sin is something that's it's about exclusion. So we're sent out into that place where people are excluded. And if all of that's happening, no wonder Thomas has the reaction that he has. Although I'm not so sure he doubts. I think that Thomas is kind of a hero because he gets it. I think he understands how challenging Jesus' life is. that it challenges our idea of what it means to believe in God, that it challenges what it means to be a follower of God, to be a disciple of Christ, which is to be sent. And it challenges ideas about sin. It means we're sent out to be with the excluded and to create a place of sanctuary for them. And so I think that Thomas doesn't doubt so much as Thomas resists. Because when we start to really take all of those three strands seriously, our lives will have to be seriously rearranged. It really does kind of shake at our foundations to steal from Tillich, and that can be shocking and frightening and risky. And so I think that what we see here is Thomas being a hero and being honest about his resistance to what's happening in the resurrection of Jesus. And ultimately, though, what happens is that whether he doubts or whether he's resisting, he's the one that Jesus appears to, which gives hope, because I certainly have plenty of both, doubts and resistance. And so whether we want to think about Thomas as the patron saint of those who doubt or the patron saint of those who resist, the story does end up telling us that in no uncertain terms that Christ will come to those who doubt and those who resist, show them the marks on his hands. And when we see those marks, I think we're challenged to heed the call. So that's where we're going this Sunday. We'll see what happens. Hope to see you, 10 a.m.